Hello, my name is Shawn Murray. I'm a doctoral student at the Institute for Advanced Studies at Colorado Technical University. This recorded video represents a requirement to complete a specific assignment where I will describe to the audience the first enterprise architecture framework concept, which was introduced in the mid-1980s. To set the stage for my audience, I need to explain that enterprise architecture is one of several practice areas that must be executed effectively to achieve improvements in an organization's mission performance and other associated measurement areas. Enterprise architecture helps to organize and clarify the relationships between the organization's strategic goals, investments, business solutions, and measurable performance improvements, but is just one link in a chain of integrated practice areas. To achieve target performance improvements in the enterprise architecture practice, this must be strong and fully integrated with other practice areas, including strategic planning, capital planning, and investment control, and, of course, program and project management. The Zachman Framework is a de facto world standard for expressing the basic elements of an enterprise architecture. It provides a formal and highly structured way of defining an enterprise that allows people to clearly describe what group of stakeholders within an enterprise is under discussion and what concern is actually being considered. The framework was originally conceived by John Zachman at IBM in the 1980s. Originally, the full technical name was the Zachman Framework for Information Systems Architecture. It was changed in the early 90s to the Zachman Framework for Enterprise Architecture. The Zachman Framework is most often represented as a grid. The columns in the grid represent various aspects of the enterprise that can be described or modeled. The rows represent various viewpoints from which the aspects can be described. Thus, each cell, formed by the intersection of a column and a row, represents an aspect of the enterprise modeled from a particular viewpoint. The architect selects and models the cells that are appropriate to the immediate purpose, with the ultimate objective of modeling all the cells. To review the 6 viewpoints, the first is the scope, which is a contextual viewpoint aimed at the planner. The business model is also a conceptual viewpoint, which is aimed at the owner. The system is a logical viewpoint, and this aimed is at the designer. The technology or the physical viewpoint is aimed at the builder. The detailed representations are out of context, and that viewpoint is aimed at the subcontractor. The functioning enterprise viewpoint is the final viewpoint out of the 6. The 6 aspects and the interrogatives to which they correspond are the data aspect of what, the functional aspect of how, the network aspect of where, the people aspect of who, and then the time aspect of when. Finally, the motivation aspect articulates why. It is key to note that within each cell of the grid, there are typical artifacts that are used in modeling the enterprise. Although the Zachman Framework applies to enterprises, the framework itself is generic. It is a comprehensive, logical structure for the descriptive representation, i.e. the models or design artifacts for any complex object. And it does not prescribe or describe any particular method, representation technique, or automated tool. The strength of the framework is that it provides a way of thinking about an enterprise in an organized way so that it can be described and analyzed. It also enables the individuals involved in producing enterprise information systems to focus on selected aspects of the system without losing sight of the overall enterprise context, i.e. the vision. According to Zachman, the challenge in designing and building complex systems such as enterprise systems is that there are simply too many details and relationships to consider simultaneously. At the same time, isolating single variables and making design decisions out of context results in sub-optimization, with all of the attendant costs and risks. This challenge is the same whether the system is physical, such as a building, or conceptual, such as an enterprise system. A prudent question to consider is, how do you design and build it, piece by piece and step by step, such that it achieves the purpose without losing its value or raising its cost by optimizing the pieces and sub-optimizing overall. This has been a fundamental description of the first enterprise architecture framework. We discussed the requirement for enterprise architecture frameworks and how John Zachman in the mid-1980s introduced his conceptual understanding of the requirement. We discussed the Zachman Framework and the relationships between the organization's functions as they relate to the enterprise. We also discussed the Zachman Framework grid and described the structure of its 6 viewpoints and the 6 aspects and the importance of supporting artifacts. In closing, I would like to mention that the Zachman Framework has evolved over the years and is still used internationally by all types of organizations. John Zachman states that the Zachman Framework is a necessary ontology in all enterprises to effectively manage change and complexity while increasing returns associated with a value-based delivery, thus reducing risks. Thank you for watching this brief discussion regarding the Zachman Framework. Your comments are appreciated.